an AMA session. So if anybody has any questions related to your applications, visas, finances, or anything related to your master's application, just feel free to go ahead and ask them. You could just ask them, just turn on your microphones and ask them here, or you could put them in the chat box. So who wants to go first? Any questions that somebody has?
Hi, good morning.
Yeah, yeah,
I had
yeah.
a question. I was beginning to beginning to work on my SOP.
Uh-huh.
The thing is, I'm not really sure what to include in it. Like, could you give us a basic overview of the structure?
Okay.
The usual structure.
Sure, yeah. So about the SOP, now when you're writing a master's SOP, an MS application SOP, the overall structure should be focused more in terms of, you start off with, the good way to start off is you tell them about what are your career goals. 1 minute, just a minute. There's some. So keep it a little more focused on your future goals. For those who joined a little late, Hussein had asked a question on how do you go about structuring your SOP. So as far as your SOP goes, the first thing that you can start off is by mentioning what are your career goals or what are your future aspirations, what are the kind of technologies that you would like to work in. I'm using the word technologies because you are applying for a technical program. That's the assumption. So what are the kind of technologies or research that you would like to do, or what maybe even if you want to work in the industry, what are the kind of job roles would you prefer? So you start off with that. You could a good way to if you could correlate your future goals with some of your past experiences. When I say past experiences, it could be work experiences, it could be some experiences that you had while working on internships or college projects, or tell the viewer how did you develop an interest in these goals, or how did these goals develop. If you could write about that, that would be great. So you could start off with saying that during my college or at work I was working on so and so problem, and this is when I started developing an interest on so and so technologies or so and so concepts, and hence these are my future goals, and to achieve these future goals I would like to pursue my masters. Now in summary, if you look at it, what your SOP should contain is an answer to this question: what are your future goals, and what are the most important aspects of your profile that you think or that you believe make you a good candidate for the masters, and how will this university help you achieve your future goals. So first thing that I would suggest is you can start about how did your goals develop. If you have some interesting ideas or stories are related to that, that could be one part of it. Mention what your future goals are. They need not be in detail. You need not go into the details of the kind of job that you're looking at. If you have some ideas on that, you can definitely write about it. But in terms of what kind of work would you like to do, what kind of roles would you prefer, you will have to talk about that, and then talk about maybe all the work that you have done during your undergrad. Maybe at if you are working, for those who are working or have work experience, you could, and if it's relevant work experience, you could talk about the skills that you have developed at work, or the kind of projects that you have done at work, and how have they added to your learning. Now when you write about your projects, when you write about your academic projects, or your work related projects, whatever it is, you don't just mention your projects and just say that this is what I did. Okay, because everybody does something. Everybody in college does a project, everybody who has a job does something at work. What you will have to highlight is why is that important, in the sense, and what has been your specific contribution to this project. So what? So you could talk about what problems did you face, what challenges did you overcome, how did you go about solving those problems, what did you learn in the process. This should be the major focus of your SOPs when you write about your college projects and your maybe work related activities. And then in conclusion, you can also say that now, okay, I have learned this, but I still need to develop certain skills in so and so area, and that is how a master's degree comes into picture. And then you can talk about what do you want to pursue. Why have you chosen to apply to this particular program or this particular university, where you can talk about what courses are offered by this program. In case you are applying for a research based program, then you can talk about what research activities are what research areas at that university are really of interest to you. If it's not a research based program and the program has certain other initiatives, like say they have some what do you say some industry related projects that they, where they offer students, or maybe something like what typically is known as a capstone project, you could write about that, or whatever you think is the good thing about that university, or that has attracted you and that has encouraged you to apply to that university. You can write about it. You need not go too much in detail. Maybe one or two sentences are okay. So overall, if you look at it, the SOP should talk about what are your future goals, or what are your future ambitions, or what areas do you want to work in the future, or maybe do research in the future. What activities in your past, say related to your academic activities, work related activities, and only relevant activities. You need not mention every activity that you have done in the past. What are the relevant activities that you think have helped you develop as a student, and have helped you develop the skills that are required uh, for pursuing this particular master's degree? And why do you want to do a master's degree now? I mean, what skills you want to further develop as part of your master's program? And eventually, how will this particular university or this particular program help you achieve your goals? That should be the overall structure of the SOP. Now, in the SOP, what you should not write, or what you should not emphasize too much, is anything related to your childhood. Um, Say most of the students start off with their SOPs. I mean, some things that they write in the SOP, which I would recommend that you should not, or it's not really required, is one is about your childhood. When I say about your childhood, in the sense, you need not mention about why you maybe decided to do an engineering degree, or, and I'm using the word engineering because Hussein, I know specifically that you are an engineer, but for others also, why you specifically chose to do this particular branch of engineering, or why you decided to get into engineering school, or maybe whichever was your bachelor's degree. You need not specifically mention about that. That is really not relevant. So saying that, you got interested in computer science right from school days and all, that is not really relevant. That part is because the viewers are going to be faculty at the university. They don't really care why you chose this particular thing. They just want to know how good you are at it. Okay, so that is their focus. Their idea is not. It doesn't matter whether you were forced to get into engineering school, or whether you went to engineering school because it was your choice. The point is, how good are you an engineer? That is what is important, and that will come out by way of, you describing your projects, you talking about what innovative things you have done in your academic work, or at your in case you have work experience, you can talk about what innovative things have you done in your work. So approach it in a way that, everybody has a job, everybody does academic projects. What is unique about your project, or what is the highlight about your work? What has been your contributions? What did you do? Anything innovative? Did you do something over and above what was expected? What problems did you face? How did you solve it? So these aspects should be highlighted in your SOP. So as I said, don't write about your childhood, and again, don't write about the industry. In the sense, say if you are applying for, maybe someone is applying for, say you are applying for a VLSI program, or you are interested in embedded systems or networking, or maybe you are interested in, to say, artificial intelligence. Don't waste a paragraph or two explaining what AI is, or what are the advancements in AI that are, and what is the future of AI. Again, this is not a very generic newspaper article or a magazine article, right? Where the readers are a broader audience. So you need to educate the reader, or build some kind of, build some kind of foundation before you get into the details. This is not required, because the viewers of your, I mean, the readers of your SOP are faculty from the department that you are applying to. Now, you don't have to tell a faculty in the engineering school on what engineering can do, or what is the future of engineering. I mean, they know it. I mean, a computer science faculty at a university knows what is the future of AI, and what AI can achieve in the future, and all that, right? So you don't need to waste. space, or rather say words behind explaining that. That is not really important to them. They know that, and they know it much better than you do. So the SOP should be focused on your profile rather than writing generic things about um, the overall industry or the overall scenario on where the world is headed towards so and so particular technology. Also, some things that you need not write in the SOP are maybe detailing all the subjects that you have taken as part of your bachelor's. You can highlight maybe one or two relevant subjects if there is something really, if you did something over and above your curriculum. But almost, say, for example, if you are a mechanical engineer, almost everybody who studies mechanical engineering anywhere around the world kind of more or less studies the same subjects, maybe a little 10% here and there, but overall the curriculum is almost the same. Similarly, students who do computer engineering study the same curriculum. So you don't have to say, okay, you started off in the first year studying these subjects, then in the second year you went on to take in these subjects. It's all almost all the same for every student with a few variations here and there, but that is not really relevant, or the professors don't need to know that. And your transcripts really tell that what subjects you have studied in detail. So this is how you should approach your SOP.
Thank you. That helps a lot.
I had one question
Yes.
regarding,
Yeah.
yeah, it's regarding LORs.
Uh-huh.
So, like, suppose I have a assistant professor which taught me a very important subject in computer science, advanced data structures, and I also did a mini project under her.
Uh-huh.
Um, so, but she is not associated full time with my college right now. Like, she's a ad hoc or can on a contractual basis. So, can I take an LOR from her, or if
Yeah,
I take,
you can
how
take
good it
an
would be?
LOR from her. It does not matter whether she is on a contractual basis or on a full time basis and all that. Those things really don't matter. But again, what will matter is that see, when you go for an LOR, right? I mean, the process for US universities works this way. Is that in your application you will have to provide the email ID of your recommender, and only the email ID. I mean, the
Hmm.
name and email ID of the recommender.
Yeah,
And when you provide the email ID, you should preferably provide an official email ID,
right.
right? So as long as she has an official email ID, nothing else matters.
Yeah, yeah. I think she has that.
Okay,
Yeah.
because then an email would be sent to this professor, and the professor would then have to would be getting a link in the email, which they will have to click and fill up your recommendation there. So there they can just directly upload a Word document, or sometimes there will be space to just copy and paste in a text box. That can also be done.
Okay. Okay. And would it be considered good? Like, it won't be like it would be a good LOR.
See, a good LR depends on the content rather than the designation of the faculty. So the designation or the fact that she is not full time or on a contractual basis, one thing is it will never show up. I mean, I don't think that part should even be mentioned in the LR. I mean, even if you mentioned it, it is fine. But that is not going to affect
Hmm.
your admission chances based on whether this person is on a contractual basis or on a full time payrolls of the university.
Okay.
Okay, so I would say don't hesitate to get an LOR from this faculty if you have actually done, if this faculty teacher has taught you and you have done some projects with her, definitely go ahead with it.
Okay. Okay. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Okay, so that's before we move on to the next question. I think there are some questions that some students have put in the chat, so I'll read them out. How many recommendations? Abhinav has asked this question. How many recommendations can I get from work for a MS in CS program? Now, Abhinav, it again depends on how many years of work experience you have. But if you have, I think, less than 2 years of work experience, from what I remember, I think one LOR should be good enough from work. And then you should at least get two from faculty. So that would be a good combination to get two LORs from faculty, and then maybe one recommendation from work is fine. So Nachiket has a question: is it a disadvantage if you apply close to the deadline rather than a month or two before, especially in case of MS and CS programs? So, Nachiket, I'll put it this way. I'll just explain how deadlines work and what are rolling admissions, and then that will kind of help you answer that question. See, some universities have hard deadlines and some follow a rolling admission process. Now, when universities follow a rolling admission process, what they do is that they say that we will evaluate applications as and when we receive them, and we will not wait for the deadlines. Most universities that follow a rolling admission process have very late deadlines. That is, their official deadline would be somewhere anywhere after, say, March or later. That is for the fall 2024 applications. That is for the August 2024 applications. Their deadlines would be March or April or sometimes even June 2024. Now, these universities follow a rolling admission process wherein if you apply in the month of November, they will review your application in November, and maybe by December or sometimes even January, they would give you a decision. Okay. So, universities that follow where there is a rolling admission process, applying early rather, makes sense because the more you delay your applications, it is quite possible that the universities have already rolled out a lot of admits, say by January or February, and then your chances of getting an admit slightly reduce there. I mean, it becomes a little more competitive to get in. But universities that have a very early and a hard deadline, like say they have a deadline of most universities which have 1st December, 15th December kind of deadlines, generally don't follow a rolling admission process. So if a university has a 1st December deadline, take for example, say UCLA has a 1st December deadline, it doesn't matter whether you apply on 1st November or you apply on 30th November or you apply on 1st of December within the timeline. Your admission will only be looked at, your application will only be looked at after the deadline. So in that case, it doesn't make much. It doesn't. You may not get a any advantage by applying way in advance. The only advantage that you might get by applying a little early is that if sometimes your recommenders are also required to submit the LORs before the deadlines. That is, if you apply and then immediately, and if sometimes you have the option of sending the notification to the recommenders much before you submit the application. That is, when you start filling up the application form, the moment you put in the details of the recommender, you have the option to notify recommenders even before you submit the application. In that case, your recommender would be notified in advance, and then they can submit the recommendation whenever they want to. It is recommended that they also do this before the deadline, but many universities would wait till for them to submit. I mean, even after the deadline, they would wait for some time to submit for them to send the recommendation before they review your application. But if you do this whole process early, it is much likely that your recommenders would also get more time to submit the application. So it is, I would suggest that if you can apply early, but to answer your question very specifically, if the deadlines of universities are first or anywhere in the November December time frame, applying early will not give you any specific advantage in terms of getting an admit. As long as your application is fully complete before the deadline, your application will be reviewed, and it will be, so whether you apply 1 month in advance or just 1 day in advance, as long as it is complete before the deadline, it is all the same. Nachiket, any follow-up questions on that, or you're kind of got the answer to that? So, Vinal, I think you have a question where you're asking about whether you're applying for, you have a 8.96 GPA, and you have a GRE score of 316 with a 162 on quant and 154 of on the verbal. Now, honestly, at least if you are applying for universities where GRE is optional, and you are kind of confused whether you should send your GRE scores or not. The thing is that you have a fairly okay GRE score. It's not very great. Your quant is a little low. I mean, if your quant was at least a 165 and above, I would have strongly recommended that you send your GRE score. Even now, I would say you can send it. I don't see a big problem in sending the GRE score. It won't. 162 I know is kind of a not a very high quant score. Verbal is good, but if you think, I think you can still go ahead and send the scores, at least where it is optional. Even again, your 8.96 GPA, again, if it's consistently in the 8.96 range, I mean, it's in the 8.5 range, it is good. Um, how is it much higher in some semesters, or is it inconsistent? Vinal, are you there?
It's a higher in last semesters.
Okay,
It's lower in the initial semesters.
okay. So I think even if you don't send the GRE, it is okay, but I would say send it. I mean, it won't cause any harm. At the most, they might ignore it because again, it's an optional thing. So my recommendation is just send it, right? At least to show that you have taken the efforts to give the GRE. Are you
Yeah.
planning to give the GRE again? Let me ask you this.
I was thinking, but most of the universities that I'm applying to have GRA is optional. So that's why I thought that I
Okay.
will focus on
So
other
wherever
aspects.
it is not required, it doesn't matter. But yes, for GRE optional, I think you can just go ahead and send the score. It's okay.
Yeah. So if it is optional, then it's no need to again give GRE, right?
No,
Because
not
most,
required. Yeah. But a university that requires GRE, and if it's a high ranked university, then yes, your score, quant score might be a drawback in the application.
most of the higher rank universities which I'm applying to, they have GRE as optional only. Only
Okay,
the
I think
safe
then it's
universities
fine.
have GRE
Yeah.
required. Thank you, Jay. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Okay. So, Nazar has a question. What is the difference between a thesis based and a coursework based masters? Um, and I think Prajakta has a question. Is it better to apply for a specialized masters? This thing? Yes. So I'll probably take them one by one. What is the difference between a thesis based and a course based masters program? So, in general, now earlier many universities didn't have this very clear distinction where they offer two different masters programs, but over the past few years some universities have started uh, offering two different masters options. One is a course based masters and one is a thesis based masters. Many universities still don't offer two different programs, but you are basically admitted, I mean, for universities that offer only one master's program, you are admitted as a master's student, and then as as you progress to the through the program, by the time you come to the final semester, you will have to make a decision on whether you want to go in for a thesis, which is generally a 6 credit based thesis research that you do as part of your masters. That is for which you will be granted credits, that is 6 credits, academic credits. Or instead, you could do a project, or you could just take additional courses, I mean, two courses, and complete your masters. Generally, most universities where they don't have two different master's programs, you have the choice whether you go in for a thesis or you go in for a non-thesis option, and that choice would be made by you probably while you are in the master's program. Maybe 1 year down the line, when it comes to your final semester, you will have to take that call. Some universities now have started offering two different master's programs, master's degrees. That is, for example, if you look at schools like UC Irvine or UIUC, Wisconsin Madison, just to name a few, they have two different masters. One is a course-based masters, and one is a what they call as the regular masters, the thesis-based masters. Some call it the course-based masters the M engineering program, or something, maybe masters of professional studies or something like that. But it's eventually the same thing. When you go for a non thesis option or you go for a course based option, the only difference between that and the thesis based option is that as part of your masters in a course based program, you don't get the opportunity to work on any thesis at all. So what happens is, as far as the studying part is concerned, I mean, as far as the courses are concerned, you will be taking the same courses that even a thesis student would take. So even if you are someone studying, say, a thesis program, and someone is studying the non-thesis program, would study the same courses or same subjects as part of their masters. I mean, it would. I mean, of course, the choice would be the students on which subjects to choose as their electives. But if two students choose the same electives, they would be basically attending in the same class. That is not the difference. The difference is that towards the end of the masters, or maybe the last semester of the masters, a thesis student would work on a thesis for which he or she would get maybe 6 credits, whereas a non-thesis student would either take courses. I mean, you would have to do 2 additional courses to complete that 6 credits, or then sometimes you can work on an industry project or something. Maybe sometimes some universities will give you also an option to do an internship, additional internship, which can compensate for that additional 6 credits. So the only difference that you will have is that you would not basically be uh, allowed to do any thesis or research as part of your masters. Now, whether to choose a thesis based program or a non thesis based program, or is there any advantages, disadvantages of going for either of them, is that if you are interested in a PhD program, or if you think that at some point you would definitely like to do a PhD, or you want to keep that option open, then going for a thesis based option is highly recommended. Because when it comes to PhD admissions, so universities prefer students who have done some research, or some who have at least worked on a thesis as part of their master's program. If you go for a non-thesis option, getting admitted to a PhD program might be a little difficult. Again, I'm not saying that it is impossible, but generally it becomes a little more difficult, because then you don't have anything to justify that why you did not do research as part of your masters if you are really interested in a career in research. The second disadvantage, or rather, I would not call this a disadvantage, is that when it comes to hiring for RA positions, RA is research assistantship positions, professors generally prefer students who are part of the thesis program, because eventually they would want the students to do thesis under them. And some universities, it may not be a rule, but it might be more like a uh, sort of an unwritten rule that generally when professors offer these positions, they only offer them to students who are enrolled in the thesis program. So getting an RA, that is a research assistantship position under a faculty, might be a little difficult again if you go for a non-thesis option, or you go for the coursework based option. Again, you can get teaching assistantship positions, you can find other on-campus jobs, but I'm specifically talking about the RA positions. That is the only difference. Yes, Nikita, you have something to ask? Okay. Uh, hmm, 1 minute, and there's something. So that is the difference between the thesis and coursework based. Any follow up questions on this? On what is the difference between a thesis and a non thesis? Anybody?
Yeah, one follow-up question on
Yes,
that.
Mohit.
Yeah, so when you're writing SOP, right,
Uh-huh.
you will have to write it based on the program type that you're going for. So you'll have to differentiate. I mean, you'll have to create two different SOPs, right? If you're applying to MCS as well and thesis-based masters as well.
Right. So if you are applying for a, so ideally, if you are applying for a program where there is no separate, for a university where there are no separate programs, right? Just one master's, you could write a research-based SOP, or you could still write. I mean, it doesn't mean that if you are applying for a MS program where there is where they don't have two options, right? It is just like a normal MS program, and then as part of the MS, at some point in while you are a student at the MS program, you decide whether you want to go for a thesis or a non-thesis. Now, even when you are applying for such programs, it doesn't mean that you have to write in your SOP about your interest in research at all. You could still keep the same SOP for all your programs, saying that you can go for a MS program, saying that you are interested in working in the industry after you finish your masters. That is absolutely fine. You don't have to say that you are interested in research just because the program offers an option to do a thesis. See, thesis is never mandatory. Uh, I mean, you don't have to definitely do a thesis. You can not do a thesis, even if you go for a general MS. So that can be one way to go about it. Like if your interest is non-thesis, like for example, if you are applying to say Georgia Tech, right? Georgia Tech has one MS program. They don't have MS in thesis, MS in non-thesis kind of option, or at least as a student applying at this point, you don't need to make that choice. But doesn't mean that everybody who goes to Georgia Tech does a thesis uh, at definitely, right? So you could just say that you are interested in a non-thesis option. You could then, you could say that you are interested in pursuing this program because you want to make a career in the industry, and that could be your SOP for all your universities. So, say for UIUC, if you are applying for a non-thesis option, you could still use the same SOP. And maybe for another university, if you are applying for a program where there are no separate, uh, options, there's just one MS, you could still use the same SOP.
Mhm.
But yes, you should not write a SOP saying that you are interested in research and then use that same SOP for a non-thesis program.
Hmm. Okay. Mhm. Okay.
Now, the only time, some Canadian universities, if someone here is applying to Canadian universities, they have this so when they have this thesis and coursework based option, right? Uh, so they are clearly, their thesis based program requires students to do thesis. But in the US, it is not the case. US is generally, unless a university offers two separate programs, then it's fine. But if it's one program, then you don't have to do thesis. But in Canada, generally, most universities offer both these options. And there, if you're applying for a thesis or a research based program, you will have to do research. Okay. I think Prajakta here has one question. Is it better to apply for a specialized master's, say AS, so MS in AI or DS, so data science, or and apply for CS even though you might specialize in data science, even in the MS in CS? So, Prajakta, see, if you are definitely certain that you are interested in data science, then I would suggest that you apply for a data science master's. Now, one advantage of that is sometimes getting admission in a specialized program is comparatively easier. So you could get a better university if you apply for a MS in data science rather than you applying for a MS in CS program. That is one advantage. The disadvantage of doing that is if you are really not certain of whether you want to pursue data science or not, then I would say then that becomes a little risky on your part, because you then apply for a program and then you go there and realize this is not what I want to do or this is not what I like, and then you will not have, it might become a little difficult to change your degree. But if you apply for a CS program, then you still have the option. I mean, even if you don't decide not to take courses on the data science or specialize in data science, you still have other options of other aspects of CS in which you can specialize. But if you are very certain, yes, the data science or AI or say machine learning or something, maybe HCI or something is you are very keen on one of the topics, and you know that this is an area I want to specialize in, you can definitely apply for a MS in data science or MS in AI. That is what I would recommend. Uh, so Vinal has a question. How do you decide between a higher ranked university and a lower ranked university, but good location? See, Vinal, if you ask me whether you get a higher ranked university, which is versus a lower ranked university, if it's a really high ranked university, go for it, because it's not just the location; it's also the brand of the university that stays with you for the rest of your life. So if you, again, it's a very strong brand. It's like an Ivy League kind of a thing. Then definitely I think you should go for it. Again, if you are getting equally low ranked, I would say not a very high ranked university, but a good location, then you can definitely go for that. Stony Brook, I would not say is a very good location wise program. I mean, it's not in New York City. It's in a place called Stony Brook, which is kind of far away from New York City. Not very far, but still. Uh, but yes, it's a good university. I mean, in terms of research, in terms of faculty, it's definitely a very good university. And again, cost is low, so
Stony
definitely a
Brook is
good.
actually a higher rank compared to SJSU, but SJSU is in the Bay Area. So I was thinking
No, so
which
if you have a
one.
choice between Stony Brook and SGSU, I would say go to Stony Brook.
Okay.
Okay.
because Stony Brook comes in ranking and SJSU has only location advantage.
Yes, SJSU has a location advantage. It's not a bad place to study, but Stony Brook would still give you. See, again, if you're really keen on research and all that, Stony Brook will give you more research opportunities.
My goal is industry oriented only. Like I
Okay.
need to get a job after 2 years.
And also, everybody wants to get a job. I'm not saying that you would not want to get a job. So
Yeah.
even if you do research during your masters, you would still want to get a job. But if
Uh,
you really want to learn more stuff and you want to, use that time to do research, academic, because after this you will never get an opportunity to do that.
yeah. Okay. Got it.
So this will
Hmm.
give you an option to do that. So
So universities like Stony Brook, NCSU, and all these are better,
I would
right?
say better than SJSU. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Jay.
Okay, Udit, regarding your question about deferments, right? So you have a question if you get an admit from a US university, but due to some reason I will have to defer that admit by 1 year. Will my admission will defer and will that depend on the university I was admitted to? Yes, it will depend on the university that you are admitted to. Every university has a deferment policy. Most universities do accept deferrals, some don't, but again and that is again it also depends on the department that you are applying to. So there is no again standard university. Some universities may not have a standard university wide policy. It would depend on the department whether they are accepting deferrals. So again, it depends, it changes year to year. Some years they do accept, but most likely they would defer an admit. So it is very rare that universities might say that we will not defer your admit. So you do have an option to defer the admit. Deferring is that you tell the university that instead of joining in 2024, you will join in 2025. Up to 1 year, most universities do defer your admits. So that is very much possible that you can defer your admit. But again, as I said, 90% of the universities would accept a deferral. There could be a possibility that your particular university that you have an admit from may not accept that deferral. I mean, it's just that it's not about you. I mean, the reasons could be that they just have a no deferral policy, or maybe this year your department says that we will not accept deferrals. They'll ask you to reapply again. That is the only thing. Okay. Vaidehi has a question. Given that there are less options for MS in robotics program, either top universities or very not very, would you suggest applying for a mechanical engineering with robotic specialization in a decent ranked university? Yes, Vaidhi. I mean, Vaidhi, if your background is in mechanical engineering, then definitely you can do that. But there are still some programs that offer degrees in robotics, mechatronics, control systems. You could take a look at those because they all have certain amount of robotics in it. But yes, very honestly, there are not many universities that offer a specialized degree in robotics. So either the top ranked ones do, or then most of the times it is part of the either mechanical engineering program, or sometimes they have a separate. The electrical engineering department also offers a degree in controls and systems, which generally covers significant amount of robotics. So you could look at those as well. But yeah, even if you go in for a mechanical engineering masters and you want to specialize in robotics, that is definitely an option that I would say. Even if you go, if you have a higher good, I mean, if you are getting a better university for a mechanical university, mechanical engineering, where you get an option to specialize in robotics, you could definitely opt for that.
One question, Jay.
Yeah, Mohit.
Um, so, so all our college projects are kind of group projects, right? So it is also possible that, I mean, my group, if you consider, that was the same constant group that I have had
Yeah.
in the college. So we did projects and even research publications together.
Mhm.
So while I know that I can differentiate my role on that project, but still there can be some information that will be overlapping, right, in all our application, for
Yeah.
example, LOR, SOP, or somewhere else. So, what do you think? What can be done there, and is there anything that reviewers especially or exactly look for the differentiating factor?
See, one is honestly, nothing can be done there, because if 3 people or 4 people have done the same project, they would write about the same thing, right? And
Mhm.
people, I mean, everybody in a group, I mean, in college, not only in India, but everywhere, when most of the projects are group projects only. So you would definitely write about what you have done in the project, and there is going to be overlapping information. Unless all the members of the group are applying to all the same universities that you are, which is also still okay. I mean, I don't see that as a problem. When you say there is overlapping going to happen in the SOPs and LORs kind of thing, the overlapping would be more in terms of content and not wordings. I mean, if the wordings that you have
Mm.
written, I mean, the whole paragraph between all the 4 of you are same, very same, word to word, then it is a problem. So if
Hmm.
there is plagiarism between the 4 of you where you write the same SOPs and same LORs, then that is a problem. But if the contents are same, I mean, you're talking about the same project in different words. Because if all 4 are expected to write about this project, everyone would use just different wordings. So what I would suggest is
Correct.
don't copy from each other. Even if the 4 of you are applying, or the 3 of you are applying to the same universities, or different, even if it's different universities, don't copy your SOPs or LORs. But having content similar is absolutely okay. I don't see that as a challenge or any problem at all.
Okay. Okay. My point was that, I mean, universities would prefer to have diverse profiles, or it is fine for them if.
No, it is fine for them to have. I mean,
Hmm.
see, diversity would. It is honestly very difficult to get diverse profiles for an MS applicant, because
Okay.
if you're, they would all be coming from almost similar academic background,
Correct. Hmm.
right? So what would matter is your, of course, your GPAs would matter. Whether your, of course, your research projects would matter. And so if 2 students have done the same good project and they like it, then obviously maybe both of you might get an admission.
Hmm.
So it's not that they are going to select just one because you have similar projects. So that is not what is going to happen. So you don't worry about that part.
Okay. Okay. Sure. Thanks. Thanks.
Yeah. Hi. I think there is one question, but yeah, go ahead. Slegana, you can ask your question.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, yeah.
I had a question. For some universities, they are requesting a personal history statement as well.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
how is that different from an SOP? Is it, do we still point out only the relevant projects we've done, or do we cover everything that
No.
we've
So
done
the
in the
personal
engineering?
history statement should not preferably talk about your academic projects at all. Okay. It should talk about you as a person. Um, so what has been your, so there you can talk about what has been your background, what has been your motivation to pursue bachelor's degree in so and so subject, what has been your motivation to pursue a master's, what do you like, how do you, I mean, in general, what other aspects of your profile do you think are relevant, or what would make you an interesting student kind of thing. You can talk about your extracurriculars there, you can talk about your involvements in non-academic activities there. So personal history statement is ideally more of that is where say if I pick up the idea of that whole personal history statement is to understand the diversity between students. So like earlier Mohit said, asked whether they are looking at diversity. So when they are looking at diversity, they are looking at profile. I mean personal diversity. In the sense, they would universities that ask for a personal history statement are looking at students who have other interests in life other than your core interests. Say, for example, if you are applying for a master's degree in computer science, right? Now, everybody would have a bachelor's degree in computer science or have done some academic project. Some would have work experience. But beyond your work and beyond your college academics, what who are you as a person is what you will have to talk about in your personal history statement. I mean, what things have shaped your ideas? What aspects of your personality do you think are your strengths? You can talk about that. You could highlight a little bit about some weaknesses if you have any. If you have faced any hardships as a during your earlier years or in college, how did you overcome them? You can talk about that. Your involvements in social activities, you can mention those. So these are what things that they should come in the personal history statement. It should not be about your focused on your academics as such too much. Okay.
I
You can
see.
also
Thank you,
talk
Rohit.
about your, I mean, if you had problems, or how did you, maybe if you, even if you want to talk about your academics, you talk about not exactly the technical aspects of it, but um, how do you maybe say while working in groups or in group projects, what challenges did you face? How did you solve them? How did you, maybe if you emerged as a team lead, uh, all those kind of things. Maybe talking about your communication skills and all that. Yeah.
On that note, I have a follow up. Sorry. Should I like keep it focused towards just my recent experiences, like say what I did in my engineering in terms of all of this, or should I like keep it more general and begin from a later perspective?
I mean, from a earlier age, you're talking
Earlier
school days.
age, yes, yeah,
So you
in
can
general,
maybe,
yes.
if, I mean, I would say 70% of it should be more of what you did in engineering and later. But maybe if there is something relevant that you have to add in, that you want to talk about from your school days, you can do that.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else on that, or I think Vinal, you're raising your hand again. So
Yes, Jay. So regarding, am I audible?
yeah, you're audible.
Yeah. So what I was saying is regarding the university rankings, I see Northeastern CS program is highly ranked than TMU CS program. But from my experience, when I see Northeastern is rolling out a lot of admits and the profile they are admitting, it's not good profile. And TMU has a good profile. So we should go on the basis of purely the US World rankings, or we should see like the kind of profiles they are admitting, because
So
Northeastern
yes.
program I don't feel it is higher ranked
So
now.
the thing is, I mean, specifically about Northeastern University, I still don't know how Northeastern jumped up the rankings in CS in the past 2 years so much. I mean, they were always ranked in the 80s and 90s, or 70s, I would say. But in the past few years, 2 years, they have, especially on US news rankings,
Yeah.
they have come up. What is their rank now? Somewhere in the 30s or
30s, yeah,
20s, right? Yeah.
exactly. And TMU
Right.
is also behind, and I
Uh,
used to think TMU is like a very high ranked
yeah,
university
it
compared
is
to.
definitely. But yes, so when Northeastern jumped the rankings, I mean, I saw that last year. Someone told me, for me, Northeastern is always a university that I would put it in the 70, 75 rank. Not a bad university, but again, not something that I felt deserved to be in the 30s. Again, this is my very personal opinion, but and I was really surprised when it came in the 30. In fact, someone pointed that out to me is last year, that Northeastern is very high ranked university, and then I said I was not very, I didn't know that it had jumped up the ranking. But anyway, so someone jumps up the ranking so fast, something is always fishy there. That is what I don't know how they managed to get up the ranking so much. But anyway, uh, Northeastern Cup. I'll tell you what is the good thing about Northeastern. The good thing is the location. That is why it is very popular. The second good thing about Northeastern is the co-op program. Is I'll tell you what co-op is, and then maybe you can understand what I'm talking about. So generally, what happens is, in a typical MS program, students are allowed to. I mean, if you see the US laws and US rules, you are allowed to only work off campus, that is in a company, as an intern during the summer. So you will start your, for example, if you start your program in this August 2024. So you will do 2 semesters. That is, you will do the fall semester and then the spring semester. And in May, which is the May of 2025, which will be your summer term, May, or sometimes in, by mostly it will start in June. So June, July, August is the summer term. So during the summer term, you are allowed to do an internship in any company, provided it's a relevant internship. Now, when a university offers a co-op option, and very few universities offer this co-op option, and one of them is Northeastern. I think Rochester Institute of Technology also offers a co-op option. What they say is that, suppose the company that you are doing an internship, or maybe some other company, allows you to continue working in the following year, right? Then you are allowed to do that. So you continue working with the, so when you did your internship in the summer, beyond your summer term, that is in the fall and spring term also, you can continue working as an intern full time, and then you can do courses part time, or you do evening courses or online courses and complete your masters. So effectively what it means is that after 2 semesters you start as an intern in a company and then you continue that internship. So you are almost doing a full time job after your first year, that is after your first 2 semesters in that company, and then completing your masters part time. That is what a co-op would allow you to do. There are some finer rules and regulations that you will have to follow, but we'll not get into that at this moment. So Northeastern is one of the few universities that allows students to do this as part of their masters. Many other any university can allow students to do a co-op. Some universities have a very strict policy that they will not allow such co-ops. That is, you work in the summer as an intern, come back and join us as a full-time student. That is what their policy is. Some universities would be say that we will take up these opportunities on a case to case basis, that is the department individually would decide whether they want to allow the student to do a co-op. Like for example, you start as an intern at at some company in the summer, and if the company says we are willing to consider we are willing to allow you to continue working with us, you will then have to go and approach your department saying that the place where I did an intern is allowing me, will you allow me to do a co-op? Some universities would say yes, some would say no. But Northeastern is one of the few universities which says yes to, I mean, it's their policy that we will allow it for every student. That is the reason why Northeastern has suddenly become so, I mean, has not suddenly, has always been popular because of this. Being in the Boston area, most students find jobs, internships in the summer, and companies, if your performance in the internship is good, most companies are willing to consider you for a full time position even after the end of your internship, and then you can continue taking your online classes or evening classes and complete your masters.
But I've heard in Northeastern the masters get extended to 2.5 years
Yeah,
when
because
we
see,
take
if you
over.
are basically working full time, you will not take courses on the full load na?
Hmm.
That is
Okay.
what happens, right? So you can't take, you then might take only one course during the next semester. So
Okay.
instead of taking 2 or 3 courses, you might take lesser credits just because you are working full time and you don't want to burden yourself with full coursework because it will be hectic, right, for you.
Yeah, yeah, correct.
Right? So you have that. So that is what I'm saying. So that is why it gets extended. Instead of finishing it in 1.5 years, you kind of delay it. You are okay with that because one is as a student, right? You are earning, so it really doesn't. You're earning full time. You start earning after a year, so that is why the students prefer that. The drawback of Northeastern is that over the past few years, they have started a lot of programs. Like they have MS in CS, they have then Align program, then they have courses on data science, data analytics, IS information systems. They have a separate College of Professional Studies which has programs in business analytics, project management kind of program. So they have almost 7 8 programs where the job searches kind of overlap. I mean, almost everybody is competing for similar kind of job. Uh,
Hmm.
okay,
Got it.
the core CS students might try for only some of the core CS job, but a student in CS would also try for some data science jobs. Students in analytics would also try for data science jobs. So there is a huge number of students at Northeastern is very high in for each of the program also, and the fact that they have too many programs is also makes it very competitive. All said and done, it is still a good university. Maybe I would not rate it in the 30s. I mean, something that might should be in the 30s, but definitely I would say go for, if you have the option of going to TAMU versus Northeastern, TAMU would be better for CS.
Okay. Thank you, Jay.
Udit, I think just left, but I have one of his questions here. Other than academic goals, is if I add personal financial goals in the SOP, how would that affect my SOP? See, most universities, okay, talking about your personal and financial goals, most universities would not want to, or most universities would not like that in your SOP. Uh, so, because the SOP is going to be read by the departmental faculty. and for them what matters is you know more of your academic goals. So I would not recommend putting your financial goals or personal goals in the SOP. If there is a personal statement that you have to write in addition to the SOP, you could definitely add about it in that. Yeah, I think before we go to, I think Vaidhi, I'll just read out one question. I have a GPA of 8.8, but a merit certificate from my department rank 10 out of 200 students. Should I include that in the resume? And if my GPA in the last 4 semesters is 9 points, should that be included? Whether you can include that in the resume, definitely not the certificate as such, but you can mention that you have a merit certificate. As part of second thing that you can do is as part of the transcripts, you can upload that merit certificate as well. So that will when the universities review that. So in the resume, the way you write it is you mention your GPA, maybe put a bullet point under your education and say that uh, have a merit certificate for ranking amongst the top 10 amongst 200 students in the department, and then you can also say GPA for the last you can generally it is known as the junior and senior year, or even if you say last 4 semesters is 9.08. So you can mention these points in your resume. And as I said, the certificate can be part of your transcripts. That is, when you upload the transcripts, generally you have to upload the transcripts. You can include this certificate as part of the PDF that has your transcript. So that is something that you can do. Yes, Legana.
Sir,
Yeah,
in some
one thing,
universities,
Legana. Am I pronouncing your name correctly? Because I'm a little hesitant.
yes, it's like mostly correct. It's Leghana.
Slegana. Okay, Slegana.
Yes.
Fine. Thank you for correcting. Hmm.
Yeah. So, in some universities, they have mentioned that GRE is not required at all, like say
Yes.
UIUC, and in some universities, they are saying it's optional, like say Columbia. So, would they be looking at the GRE score at all, or would they disregard it in the universities? It's not required at all.
Where it's not required, they will not look at it only. So
Okay.
even if you send it,
In-
it's you're just wasting money. Or if you're actually sending it officially, then you're wasting money. Although if you're uploading it, they will not be looking at it. If you still have a very
right.
good GRE score, you can maybe mention that in the resume. But I would not. I don't think they will bother about it. That will not be a factor. Where it is optional, yes, they would consider it.
Okay. Actually, in UIUC, they in the sorry, in the GRE score section, they mentioned that the GRE score is not required, but you can upload a PDF of the scores if you need to. So,
Yes.
would they be looking at that or
In
not?
that case, they will look into it.
Okay.
All right. So then that is so that's what if you have a good GRE score, that will always be an advantage.
Right. That makes sense. Yes. Thank
Yes. Any other question? Yeah, Hussein.
Yeah, I was curious about if there's any resource where we can check the profiles for previous candidates who have been admitted to a certain university.
Generally, you will only find that you will have to do on LinkedIn, but there will be no one single resource where you can find the profiles and details of all the students and all that. But the best way to be contact them if you want to talk to students, kind of you will have to get in touch with them through LinkedIn. You find
I
say
see.
you want to get into say you want to find students who are currently doing masters at say XYZ university, you just search on LinkedIn and get in touch with them.
Okay, so the only way is to ask them directly, huh?
Yes, you can do that definitely.
Okay, there's one more question. I'm not sure if this is relevant, but when I recently gave my GRE and this the test was over and I had to select 4 universities to send my
Yeah, yeah.
scores, uh, the section where you have to select the department you want to send it to, I saw electronics. I mean, I was interested in electrical, right? But
Yeah.
I saw electronics as well. And when I came back home and went through the page of all these universities which I sent my scores to, they didn't have any electronics related department. I mean, sorry, programs. So what exactly happens if I do end up sending it to the electronics department? Is
See,
it
it
considered by
doesn't.
the whole electrical
No, see,
program or what?
thing is, what happens is, see, the way GRE works is that the GRE department is the same, right? So it doesn't GRE does not bother whether there is a department or no department.
I
Right.
see.
So if you see any university, it will have the same departments listed on the GRE website. So GRE is the departments listed on the GRE website are not exactly the departments that the university has, and department codes don't matter. So any score that you send to a university, whether you send it to the whether you select mechanical or you select electrical or you select electronics or you select computers, they all go to the graduate school of the university.
Ah,
So whatever you select in the department really doesn't matter.
okay, that's a relief. Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
so it is irrelevant whether you selected electronics and the way the GRE functions. I mean, the ETS people, they have a list of all possible departments that universities can have, and it's the same thing for all universities. So they don't check whether, okay, say for example, if you selected NCSU, whether NCSU even has an electronics department or not, or you say it would even have say a biomedical department listing when they don't have a degree in biomedical. I'm just giving an example.
Mhm.
So they would, so those departments are the same for all universities on the GRE website. They are not exactly like whether the universities have that department or not. So that doesn't matter.
Okay, that's good.
So don't worry about the department code. Even if you, so as long as you have sent it to the correct university, that is all that matters. The department code doesn't matter at all.
That's good.
So you don't have to
Uh,
resend the scores again if you're applying to that university.
got it. So I gave my TOEFL last year around June,
Hmm.
so June 2022, and I think the validity is for 2 years, correct?
Hmm.
So will it be? Can I use it? Can I use the same for applying for spring? I mean, sorry, fall next year. That is August, or do I have to give it again since it
When
doesn't?
did you give your TOEFL?
June 2022.
Okay. So
So is it? Yeah.
most likely in many cases it would be okay. Some universities now say that the TOEFL should be valid on the first day of your classes. So in that case, of what you will, once you decide on the universities, you will have to email them and ask them about their TOEFL policy, whether the TOEFL scores are valid, whether they would accept the scores because you would be sending them now, or would they want them to be valid on the first day of classes. If they say they want them to be valid on the first day of classes, then you might have to retake the TOEFL, or you just drop that university. So once you finalize the universities, this is something that you might have to write to them and check what is their TOEFL policy on that.
I see. So the best course of action would be just give it, just in case.
Yeah, in case you want to do that, just on the safer side, you can do that. That is one
Yeah.
way. But otherwise, you just write to the universities and check.
Okay.
Ajay, yeah, Vinal, okay. About Hussein, your question about where do you find profiles of students, right? So Yocket, Vinal has just said that Yocket has information about that. So Yocket will generally give you statistics. You will may not have the option of getting in touch with these students. If that is what you were, I thought you wanted to ask.
What I do is I take the name from there and I go and search them on LinkedIn and verify
Okay,
if they are already there,
correct, right?
because not all the info is correct. So
Yeah,
that is
yeah.
a
So
hack
not
I have tried.
correct. So that is what you can basically do. So ideally, you will have to get in touch with them through LinkedIn or some other resources. There is no one common place where you can find uh, students and the universities and their contact details and all that kind of thing. So
Yeah. Thanks, Venal. That sounds useful.
Yeah, so what I do is I check my similar GRE score and my similar GPA one, and then I message them only, because if they have higher GPA and GRE, their suggestions I don't want.
hmm, right. Yeah. Any further any more questions from anybody?
So these two variants of masters, the one thesis based and
Uh,
the I don't know industrial, practical,
yeah, the course based or yeah.
the course based one, do they have a fixed number of seats already designated to them, or is it like free? Like for example, 200 students are admitted, but coincidentally only 200, I mean 100 want to do research, and 100 want to do coursework.
No, so each one, the admissions are separate. I mean, each university, so each university, I mean, for university has two separate courses, right, that they run, where they run a research-based course and a non-research-based course. Then the number of seats allotted to them are also uh, kind of finalized. More or
I
less,
see.
they know that okay, for the research based, we would pick in 50 students, and the non-research, we would say 200. Generally, that is how the distribution would be, because research based, they generally pick. They are generally universities have limited seats for research based and more seats for the non-research based program. Um, Generally, it will not be that if you so in a general masters where there is no separate research based and this thing, then there's just one. Um, there's so suppose if a university has only one program, say masters in electrical engineering program, MS in electrical, where they don't have any demarcation whether it's a research based or a non-research, then and they have say they have 100 students, so out of that, maybe at the end of the year, after completing 1 year, even if 5 students say that we want to do research and nobody is interested in research, that is all okay. But if when they have two separate programs, the number of seats for each of them are also earlier, I mean, it's pre-decided.
Understood. So they're separate things.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're separate programs.
Another question I had was when you were talking about the rolling deadlines, I
Uh-huh.
mean, the rolling admissions, when would be the earliest major one beginning?
See, the earliest ones would be 1st December.
Okay, okay, that's
UPenn,
good.
University of Pennsylvania, has, I think, first 15th November as one of their round one deadlines, early deadlines, but nothing before that
Okay,
that I
15th
can
is
think of.
the first one. Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Any other questions? If not, then we'll end today's session.
I had one last question.
Yeah, you say.
Um, so when I'm done with my application
Hmm.
and I submit it, and I'm waiting for my recommenders to do their own thing, can I see the status of their submission, like have they submitted or not?
Yeah, you
Confirm.
can see most universities will give you a status of whether the recommenders have submitted. As part of your online application, you will get to see whether the recommenders have submitted the application on their recommendation letters or not. So you will get to
Okay.
know that. If they
Okay.
haven't, then you will have to follow up with them and ask them to do that.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other questions, then we'll end today's session. Once again, thanks a lot for joining. And if you have any further questions that probably you missed asking or you want to discuss it in person, just feel free to get in touch with me. Okay. So bye
Thank you
then.
so much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Oh, I think Vaidhi, you have one question here. Would you suggest applying in the early decision deadlines? The ones where acceptance is mandatory if offered. See, most likely for master's programs, there are no universities that offer such early decision deadlines. The early decision that you're talking about is more of a concept of undergraduate admissions, that is bachelor's admissions. For masters, you may not have these kind of deadlines, but some universities, yes, if it is a preferred university, like some engineering management courses, like I think Duke and all have these early deadlines, or they have two, not early deadlines, but I would say they have two deadlines. Uh, Maybe one in say December 15th and one might be in March or something like that. In that case, if that is a top university and it's one of your preferred university, I would suggest applying in the early deadline. It is all your chances of admission are generally higher in the early deadline. So if it is a preferred university, I would definitely recommend applying in that early deadline. Okay. Chalo, bye then. Bye.